what's up you guys, this is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today we're doing something new when I prototype the Crossfire. Now, about a month back I posed the question, why not Zephyr? And there were a lot of opinions tossed out, from her abilities are boring, to her passive is irritating, to the fact that she lacks the ability to fly. And the comment that literally made me laugh out loud, number 1, she's ugly, and number 2, wind is the lamest element. But we'll address that jewel of a comment later. Regardless, everything that was said really gave me some good direction in my analysis. And what crystallized from everything you guys tossed into the pot was one simple fact. Zephyr lacks engaging gameplay, as none of her abilities cause her to directly interact or target her enemies. Now, for more clarification, let's take a closer look at her kit. Her number 1 is a dash skill that just happens to hit anything in its path, but is primarily used for movement. Her number 2 causes her to dive bomb, dealing damage and knocking down any surrounding enemies, but can only be used while mid-air. Her number 3 deflects ranged attacks, and her number 4 summons AI-controlled tornadoes. So what it boils down to is 2 movement abilities, a defensive buff, and an ultimate that is controlled by AI. Now, while I am being a bit reductive as to both Tailwind and Dive Bomb's mechanics, the reality is they are extremely underpowered abilities. With a base of 250 damage apiece, they just don't feel rewarding to use. In comparison, Rhino's Iron Charge starts at 650 and doubles if reused within its multiplier window. Atlas's Landslide deals 350 points of damage, but also pulls in select melee mods, is increased through its multiplier as well as its combo counter, and the third strike on its combo is like a fistful of orgasm. The worst part is that even Excalibur, a starter frame mind you, has Slash Dash, which shares the same base damage, but also pulls in melee mods, works off of the combo counter, and bounces between enemy targets within its cone. So at the end of the day, the only abilities that harbor any kind of interaction aren't really incentivized to be used to engage the enemy. And considering the fact that Turbulence, which is the Beyonce of her abilities, functions best when at range, just further reinforces not using her 1 and 2 to directly dash into the fray head first. Now, as for Turbulence, oh my god DE, if you are listening, do not fucking touch it, I love it, don't you dare! This one is fine, but again, it stays consistent with the non-interactive narrative. And last but not least is Tornado. Now, while I honestly find this ability incredibly annoying, admittedly, it's epic to look at and does a fairly good job with CC. Although it is a bit random, combined with Turbulence, you can easily render large packs of enemies helpless. But again, it's another set it and forget it ability, as the AI just does the rest of the job for you. So we've got 2 abilities that are incentivized more for movement, and 2 set it and forget it abilities. The second that I said that out loud, I realized she has little to no engagement with the enemy. Now the reason why this is important is because the engagement level has only ever been paid attention to offensively, like Mag's pre-rework Polarize and Ash's Bladestorm, whose rework is currently being tweaked. In their cases, it allowed them to clear rooms with little to no interaction with an enemy. Press 1 button and everything dies. No effort required. Now what we're looking at here is basically the mirrored version of those 2 abilities. Very low interaction, but all focused on defense instead of offense. Clearly, this isn't going to be as exciting as sweeping through rooms, leaving dead bodies in your wake with a single keystroke, but it doesn't necessarily make for engaging gameplay, which I think Glitch135 said it the best. I don't dislike Zephyr. From what I remember, she was a very easy frame to brutalize, level, and play with. I just didn't get much out of her. She was just too bland to me. Now the question is, how do we fix it? Alrighty, this is where I get into disclaimer mode. I, nor you the viewing audience, are developers, and thus we should not marginalize how difficult putting changes into effect would be. So while we may have pie-in-the-sky hopes and dreams for what abilities we can create, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be number 1, easy or even possible to put in game, number 2, not have detrimental effects and be exploitable when combined with other abilities, either Zephyr or another frames, and number 3, actually benefit Zephyr to the point where other players would want to play her by a large enough margin. Because let's be real, we all think our ideas are great, but let's face it, that's not always the case. With that said, let's jump in. Okay, so let's start by addressing the passive. Now, a handful of you loved it, but a lot of people like Chaotic Axor stated that it bothered them a lot since it made advanced movement difficult and slower, while a few others, like Cursed Fox, pointed out that it was made utterly redundant after Movement 2.0. So instead of getting rid of it completely, what if they made the passive work better with parkour? I'm personally thinking unlimited bullet jumps. They'd act just like normal, increasing with momentum with each added jump, and most importantly, you'd be able to bullet jump after bullet time, giving you a bit more control over your direction. So instead of being less effective with parkour, she can harness it in a way that no other frame can. Moving along, about a gazillion of you wanted to see Zephyr's Tailwind and Dive Bomb combined. So I'm not posting up every single content, but y'all know who you are. Now I think that's a fairly strong idea. By using the same ground targeting mechanics as jump attacks, she'll be able to dive bomb just like before. But I wanted to add something into this. First off, multiple casts should reduce energy cost, and while it can still be used as a dash, if an enemy is targeted, it should act like Valkyr's Hysterical Assault, allowing you to pounce, or in this case swoop, in on an enemy, knocking them down as well as other targets in the area of effect. That way you are not completely disoriented by dashing into terrain when you're trying to mount an assault. Next up is her number 2. Now, I wanted something that would be engaging but also feel unique and rewarding to use. Her new ability would be called Birds of Prey. She'd fire off projectiles similar to Frost Freeze, but with a much larger area of effect. All enemies caught within the radius would be dealt damage, temporarily stunned, opening them up to finishers, and marking them for a duration. Now, this is where I stopped myself from making the ability too OP. So, marked targets would have one of the following effects. Either they'll have an increased chance to drop loot and health orbs, or once slain, they'll pulse an energy restore to surrounding allies, as well as providing some kind of combat buff. Think something along the lines of power strength, accuracy, or movement speed. Or some other cool buff I haven't thought of yet. Now, the next ability absolutely kills my heart, because I'm gonna suggest that Turbulence becomes a toggle. I don't want it to be a toggle because it's more energy efficient without it, but the only way my rework will work is if it becomes one. Turbulence basically stays the same, but gets the added bonus of, if you use Tailwind with it active, you are put into flight mode. Because the fact is, just having a flight mode period without any added effect is honestly a waste of an ability, so combining it with Turbulence makes sense. However, being forced into flight mode when using Turbulence would be absolutely painful in cramped areas, thus the requirement for activating it with Tailwind. Now, we got a little sass monster here because Creepy Skull went all in against Flight, saying, flight mode with Turbulence would let Zephyr fly over melee enemies and completely distance herself from explosions, as well as letting her fly over nullifiers. She'd be completely immune to all possible threats. It would be the cheesiest thing since Trinity. And I'm not disagreeing with that. But boo, you forgot a couple things. First off, Titania gets a 50% evasion bonus when in Razor Wing. Combine that with Tribute's power buff that reduces enemy accuracy by 50%, and she becomes a pain to kill. Let's also not forget that Mesa's Shatter Shield reduces all incoming damage by 95%, and her shooting gallery stuns all nearby targets. Chroma's Vex Armor pretty much does the same, and with Ice Elemental Ward which redirects bullets and procs cold, slowing surrounding enemies to a crawl, combine that with a couple arcanes, and Chroma becomes near unkillable. And then there's Wukong, who just doesn't die. The defensive cheese already exists. At least Zephyr will have a very interesting slice. That, mind you, she will have to pay for due to the fact that Turbulence is now a toggle and she can't regen via Energy Siphon or Xenaric's Focus. So I think that's a pretty decent trade-off. Now last and somewhat least is Tornado. I believe Signs 314 said it the best. I have always liked Tornado, though its inability to recast while active, combined with wanting high duration for Turbulence, means that it's not useful in all occasions. And in defense missions where you actually need to kill everyone, it's kind of a pain to finish off swirling enemies. So let's keep this one simple. Let's turn Tornado into a toggle and call it a day. Now, clearly I am not a DE employee, nor do I hold any kind of influence over anyone in their offices, so don't expect anything to come of this. However, I did find it really interesting to see everyone's ideas and try to solve a few of the issues, at least conceptually. And honestly, that is the premise of this new series. I want to toss out a discussion piece at the beginning of the week that I encourage our community to jump in on, and I'll crystallize a response in a follow-up video. Then we'll pick a new topic and move the fuck on. So tell me what you think about everything we discussed here and leave your suggestions for new topics in the comments below. And make them good, because I just got approval to award the winning topic with a little bit of play. So thank you all for watching this weird prototype. If you'd prefer something more normal, be sure to check out my hit list on my top 5 status weapons. However, if you want something less normal, watch my Death by Kool-Aid stream highlight reel. You will either be very, very disappointed or you'll get a kick out of it. Now, don't forget to do all the things that I ask you to do at the end of every one of these, and as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. What the hell are you even talking about? Have you not seen Aang the Last Airbender, Storm from the X-Men, and Linka from Captain Planet making tornadoes and shit? How the fuck are you gonna say wind is lame when Hurricane Matthew literally tore up everything from the Caribbean to North Carolina? You shut your goddamn mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. Wind is lame. You crazy.